Christian scriptures mention a Queen of the South, who came from the uttermost parts of the earth, from the extremities of the then-known world, to hear the wisdom of Solomon. The mystical interpretation of the Song of Songs, which was felt as supplying a literal basis for the speculations of the allegorists, makes its first appearance in Origen, who wrote a voluminous commentary on the Song of Songs. In his commentary, Origen identified the bride of the Song of Songs with the Queen of the South of the Gospels. Others have proposed either the marriage of Solomon with the Pharaoh's daughter, or his marriage with an Israelite woman, the Shulamite. The former was the favorite opinion of the mystical interpreters to the end of the 18th century. The latter has obtained since its introduction by Good. The bride of the Canticles is assumed to have been black due to a passage in Song of Songs 1 verse 5, which the Revised Standard Version translates as, "I am very dark, but comely," as does Jerome, while the New Revised Standard Version has, "I am black and beautiful," as the Septuagint. One legend has it that the Queen of Sheba brought Solomon the same gifts that the Magi later gave to Jesus. During the Middle Ages, Christians sometimes identified the Queen of Sheba with the Sibyl Saba. Coptic. The story of Solomon and the Queen was popular among Copts, as shown by fragments of a Coptic legend preserved in a Berlin papyrus. The Queen, having been subdued by deceit, gives Solomon a pillar on which all earthly science is inscribed. Solomon sends one of his demons to fetch the pillar from Ethiopia, whence it instantly arrives. In a Coptic poem, Queen Yasaba of Cush asks riddles of Solomon. Ethiopian. The most extensive version of the legend appears in the Kebra Nagast, Glory of the Kings, the Ethiopian national saga, translated from Arabic in 1322. Here Menelik I is the child of Solomon and Makeda, from whom the Ethiopian dynasty claims descent to the present day. While the Abyssinian story offers much greater detail, it omits any mention of the queen's hairy legs or any other element that might reflect on her unfavorably. Based on the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, the Queen of the South is claimed to be the Queen of Ethiopia. In those times, King Solomon sought merchants from all over the world in order to buy materials for the building of the temple. Among them was Tamrin, great merchant of Queen Makeda of Ethiopia. Having returned to Ethiopia, Tamrin told the queen of the wonderful things he had seen in Jerusalem, and of Solomon's wisdom and generosity, whereupon she decided to visit Solomon. She was warmly welcomed, given a palace for dwelling, and received great gifts every day. Solomon and Makeda spoke with great wisdom, and instructed by him, she converted to Judaism. Before she left, there was a great feast in the king's palace. Makeda stayed in the palace overnight, after Solomon had sworn that he would not do her any harm, while she swore in return that she would not steal from him. As the meals had been spicy, Makeda awoke thirsty at night and went to drink some water, when Solomon appeared, reminding her of her oath. She answered, "Ignore your oath, just let me drink water." That same night, Solomon had a dream about the sun rising over Israel, but being mistreated and despised by the Jews, the sun moved to shine over Ethiopia and Rome. Solomon gave Makeda a ring as a token of faith, and then she left. On her way home, she gave birth to a son, whom she named Bynalikum. After the boy had grown up in Ethiopia, he went to Jerusalem carrying the ring and was received with great honors. The king and the people tried in vain to persuade him to stay. Solomon gathered his nobles and announced that he would send his firstborn son to Ethiopia together with their firstborns. He added that he was expecting a third son, who would marry the king of Rome's daughter and reign over Rome so that the entire world would be ruled by David's descendants. Then Bynalikum was anointed king by Zadok the high priest, and he took the name David. The firstborn nobles who followed him are named, and even today some Ethiopian families claim their ancestry from them. Prior to leaving, the priest's sons had stolen the Ark of the Covenant, after their leader Azarias had offered a sacrifice as commanded by one God's angel. With much wailing, the procession left Jerusalem on a wind cart led and carried by the archangel Michael. Having arrived at the Red Sea, Azarias revealed to the people that the ark is with them. David prayed to the ark, and the people rejoiced, singing, dancing, blowing horns and flutes, and beating drums. The ark showed its miraculous powers during the crossing of the stormy sea, and all arrived unscathed. When Solomon learned that the ark had been stolen, He sent a horseman after the thieves and even gave chase himself, but neither could catch them. Solomon returned to Jerusalem and gave orders to the priests to remain silent about the theft and to place a copy of the ark in the temple, so that the foreign nations could not say that Israel had lost its fame. According to some sources, Queen Makeda was part of the dynasty founded by Za-Besai Angabo in 1370 BC. The family's intended choice to rule Aksum was Makeda's brother, Prince Nurad, but his early death led to her succession to the throne. She apparently ruled the Ethiopian kingdom for more than 50 years. The 1922 regnal list of Ethiopia claims that Makeda reigned from 1013 to 982 BC, with dates following the Ethiopian calendar. In the Ethiopian Book of Aksum, Makeda is described as establishing a new capital city at Azeba. Edward Ullendorf holds that Makeda is a corruption of Candace, the name or title of several Ethiopian queens from Meroe or Seba. Candace was the name of that queen of the Ethiopians whose chamberlain was converted to Christianity under the preaching of Philip the Evangelist in 30 AD. In the 14th century Ethiopic version of the Alexander Romance, Alexander the Great of Macedonia is said to have met a Queen Candake of Nubia. The tradition that the biblical Queen of Sheba was an ingenuous ruler of Ethiopia who visited King Solomon in Jerusalem is repeated in a 1st-century account by Josephus. He identified Solomon's visitor as a queen of Egypt and Ethiopia. Historians believe that the Solomonic dynasty actually began in 1270 with the Emperor Yakuno Amlak, who, with the support of the Ethiopian Church, overthrew the Zagwe dynasty, which had ruled Ethiopia since sometime during the 10th century. The link to King Solomon provided a strong foundation for Ethiopian national unity. Ethiopians see their country as God's chosen country, the final resting place that he chose for the ark, and Sheba and her son were the means by which it came there. Despite the fact that the dynasty officially ended in 1769 with Emperor Ioas, Ethiopian rulers continued to trace their connection to it, right up to the last 20th-century emperor, Haile Selassie. According to one tradition, the Ethiopian Jews also trace their ancestry to Menelik I, son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. An opinion that appears more historical is that the Falashas descend from those Jews who settled in Egypt after the first exile, and who, upon the fall of the Persian domination on the borders of the Nile, penetrated into the Sudan, whence they went into the western parts of Abyssinia. Several emperors have stressed the importance of the Kebra Nagast. One of the first instances of this can be traced in a letter from Prince Kassa to Queen Victoria in 1872. Kassa states, "There is a book called Kebra Nagast which contains the law of the whole of Ethiopia, and the names of the shums, governors, churches, and provinces are in this book. I pray you will find out who has got this book and send it to me, for in my country my people will not obey my orders without it." Despite the historic importance given to the Kebra Nagast, there is still doubt to whether or not the queen sat on the throne.